The butler was in charge of the male servants. I said that a bit weird, I'll say that one more time.
Yeah, it was a bit too frisky the way you said that.
The male servants.
We have been inspired by the Netflix series Bridgerton and the books of Jane Austen to do a series about life in Regency England.
The subject of servants has been requested by the wonderful YouTube channel Flour, Eggs and Yeast. They were particularly keen to know about the relationship between servants and their masters and mistresses.
By the beginning of the 19th century, the keeping of servants was seen as a sign of prosperity, especially amongst the gentry and the quickly growing middle classes. Professional people such as physicians and lawyers found that hiring servants gave them a greater status within the community.
Although this may seem extravagant to us, before all the mod cons that we now take for granted, maintaining even a modest home took an awful lot of manpower. The running of a grand home in an elegant style might require up to 50 servants.
Members of the ton, or high society, were classified by their rank, and so indeed were the servants they hired to maintain, care for and clean their homes.
Servants fell into two broad categories: upper servants and lower servants. The more responsibilities overseen and the closer the servant worked with the master or mistress of the household, the higher their status.
In very large and wealthy houses, the master and mistress did not directly supervise the servants. They appointed a steward who was kind of a personal assistant. His duties included management of the domestic staff. Below the steward was the butler and housekeeper. In houses that did not appoint a steward, the butler and housekeeper would be top of the hierarchy.
The butler was in charge of the male servants. I said that a bit weird, I'll say that one more time.
Yeah, it was a bit too frisky the way you said that.
The male servants. The butler was in charge of the male servants. Very importantly, he was in charge of the wine cellar and the household silver and china, which was stored in his room, the butler's pantry, for safekeeping. He also dealt with visitors to the house, and so he had to be aware of social distinction and proper etiquette. Unlike lower servants, the butler was always called by his surname. Jeffreys is Simon's butler in Bridgerton.
The housekeeper supervised the female staff. The housekeeper and cook would take their orders directly from the mistress of the house. She managed the household accounts and organised the daily food shopping. Even if she was unmarried, everyone called her Mrs. as a sign of respect.
Cooks, and occasionally chefs in the largest of houses, were often given a higher salary than the steward, and as such they were regarded as separate from other domestic staff.
A lady's maid was a very desirable position. She served the lady or ladies of the household directly and was not under the housekeeper's control. A lady's maid helped her mistress dress and undress and maintained her wardrobe. She also styled her hair. She was expected to be pretty and personable, and preferably French. With the Napoleonic Wars, few suitable French girls were available. Therefore, some ladies simply employed English maids and called them by a French name.
A valet, and yes, I did mean to rhyme that with palate, is a gentleman's manservant. He tends to his master's every need. His duties included making sure that his master's day goes very smoothly from the time he rises to the time he goes to bed.
Let's look at the lower Regency-era servants. Footmen announced visitors, served at meal times and attended the family when they went out. They often wore a uniform known as livery. At the British Royal Court, red state livery is still worn by pages, footmen and coachmen.
Housemaids and chambermaids were responsible for carrying coal, lighting fires, heating water for washing and bathing, and carrying it upstairs to the bedrooms. They also cleaned the chamber pots, changed the bed linen, drew the curtains, and scrubbed the floors. Large households divided housemaids into upper maids and lower maids. The upper housemaids performed duties that required interaction with family and and visitors. They were expected to be more presentable in terms of appearance and manners. Lower housemaids were responsible for heavier, dirtier work.
Kitchen maids served the cook or chef. The kitchen maids lit the stoves and helped prepare the meals.
Considered the lowest in the hierarchy, scullery maids and laundry maids did the most difficult and painful work. Scullery maids worked long hours cleaning hundreds of dirty dishes and pots and pans generated by the lavish multi-course meals. Laundry maids toiled ceasingly washing linens with abrasive cleaning agents like sand and lye. Girls aged 13 to 14 and sometimes as young as 11 were employed as the lowest form of maids.
In a smaller household, a maid of all work may perform all of the above tasks. Her work hours probably lasted from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. for perhaps just 2 shillings a week. These maids were not only the most hard-working, they were also the most common.
What was life like as a servant? There was a high turnover rate due to many grievances between servants and their employers.
Wages could be deducted for a number of reasons. For example, if they broke something, if they didn't go to church, or if they were drunk. There were many grounds for dismissal. These included dishonesty, theft, and insubordination.
Normally, women could expect to continue working until marriage. Occasionally, married women and married couples were employed in the household, but not usually. Many masters insisted upon celibacy amongst the servants. This rule, however, was often broken by the masters themselves.
Female servants were deemed sexually available to men of the house. These girls, arriving in London in great numbers, were often daughters of farmers. They were naive, young, and desperate for income.
Pregnancy was often cause for immediate dismissal. Since gaining employment in another house required a character reference, those who were fired could face months of unemployment.
In Regency London, many women who could not care for their babies, whether because of poverty or illegitimacy, gave them up to the Foundling Hospital, a charity orphanage founded in 1739. Mothers left a token with their babies, keeping half for themselves in the event they ever wanted to reunite with their child. Unfortunately, this did not happen very often.
Were there any perks? The greatest perk of domestic service was the fact that meals and accommodation was included in the package. Housekeepers received the leftovers from meals. Ladies' maids enjoyed the cast-offs from their mistresses.
We have been inspired by the Bridgerton series and the books of Jane Austen to... I think. We have been inspired...
Oh, sorry, I was dazing off like a dopey person.
Nothing new there then.
This is what we say every time. This should be the easy bit.
I know.
It doesn't bode well.
To do a series about life in Regency England.
Yeah, should we roll with that?
I think that'll do.
I'll get the idea.